March Madness is in full swing, and sadly, I'm not talking about the basketball tournament. In fact, one could argue the NCAA tournament was the sane that happened in the last month. They should rename it March Normalcy. I mean, at least it was still just basketball teams playing basketball according to the rules of basketball. If Donald Trump ran the tournament the same way he runs the government, it would have been crazy. Some three-pointers would be worth 3 points, some would be worth -7, but you wouldn't know until after you shot the ball. Loose alligators would be wandering around on the court. They'd make them play in empty swimming pools that were slowly being filled up over the course of the game. Madness! Anyway, what was I talking about? Oh, right, politics. Damn it. All right, for more on this, it's time for a closer look. Well, you guys, it finally happened. Donald Trump has entered his Gaddafi era. Rumor has it he's been trying to grow a goatee, but it hasn't worked, so he's just going to take some clippings from his head and glue them onto his chin. Trump got masked agents snatching people off the street for opinions he doesn't like. He's musing about staying in office past the end of his term. He's abducting people with no criminal record and sending them to foreign prisons without due process. He's implementing arbitrary tariffs and admitting he couldn't care less if Americans pay higher prices. He's fully turned Canada, that Canada, into an enemy. He's threatening military force to annex Greenland. He signed an order directing his vice president to remove wokeness from the National Zoo. And he's mad about a portrait in the Colorado State Capitol that isn't sufficiently flattering. Let me just say, I don't agree with Trump on much, but yeah, you. You, bro. This looks like a character from a Saturday morning cartoon called Trump Babies. Trump loves to imagine himself as a towering historical figure who can intimidate his foes into submission, but in this portrait, he looks like a thumb in a suit. He looks like he should be driving a pickle car in a Richard Scarry book. This is also a very classic Trump self-own, because if he hadn't said anything, almost no one would have seen this painting. I can't remember the last Sunday I spent online scrolling through State House portraits of the current president. It's been months. But instead, Trump lost his and demanded to be taken down, claiming many people from Colorado have called and written to complain. In fact, they're actually angry about it. He makes it sound like he's the one working the phones at the White House complaint desk. Oh, I've been slammed. Phones are ringing off the... Hello, complaint line? Yes, we've seen the painting. Hold, please. Hello, complaint line? Yes, ma'am. It is an abomination. We're working on it. Hold, please. Yes, complaint line? What's that? As the president, I should be worrying about things that are more important than how I look at it. Ew. By the way, this portrait right here, this was commissioned by Republicans. It was supposed to be flattering. But after Trump complained, Colorado Republicans said they requested for Trump's portrait to be taken down and replaced by one that depicts his contemporary likeness. His contemporary, have you seen him lately? He looks like he's suffering from early onset rigor mortis. Save yourself some bucks, just frame a picture of Fire Marshal Bill. So, Trump was up to speed with every granular detail of an unflattering portrait hanging in a state capitol 1,600 miles away and immediately demanded action. But when his own dumbass advisors accidentally added a reporter to a group chat about highly sensitive war plans that could have potentially compromised the safety of American pilots in what was widely regarded as possibly the most dangerous and stupidest military leak in American history, Trump claimed he needed more time to catch up on the particulars.
Your reaction to the story in The Atlantic that said that some of your top cabinet officials and aides had been discussing very sensitive material through Signal and included an Atlantic reporter for that. What is your response to that?
I don't know anything about it. I'm not a big fan of The Atlantic. To me, it's a magazine that's going out of business. I think it's not much of a magazine, but I know nothing about it. You're saying that they had what?
They were using Signal to coordinate on sensitive materials and
having to do with what? Having to do with what? What were they talking about?
With the Houthis.
The Houthis? You mean the attack on the Houthis? Right. I don't know anything about it. You're telling me about it for the first time.
You're the Why do we have to explain it to you? Don't you have advisors that can fill you in? Don't tell me you're the one person they won't invite to the group chat. Or did they kick you off because you wouldn't stop talking about the portrait? Hegseth, need feedback soon as to whether we should initiate the strike. Vance, while there are risks, I appreciate the potential upside of taking action. Trump, hey gang, update on the portrait. They're gonna do a new one. Obviously, this is a huge relief to me as the current one has been spinning me out. It's like, in what world do I look like that? Also, just a heads up, I'm gonna pronounce the Houthis Houthis because it's just easier for me to say. Donald has been removed from the chat. And then in a phone interview over the weekend, Trump again claimed ignorance, telling NBC News, "I have no idea what Signal is. I don't care what Signal is." My takeaway is he's still so mad he wasn't on the chat. I don't know what Signal is, and I don't even care. I also don't care that Jessica is having a party, if she's even having one. I don't know about it. I just know I would have been invited if it hadn't been for that stupid painting. Trump is just openly admitting that he doesn't pay attention to what his government is doing. I can't even begin to imagine the 5-alarm meltdown Republicans would have had if Joe Biden's aides had been caught planning military operations in a third-party group chat without his knowledge. And when asked about it, Biden said, yeah, the only signal I know about is the turn signal on my Stingray. If that baby is blinking, you better believe, bud, I'm about to go left or right, I don't know. I decided the last second, because I don't like to plan ahead. For example, people would say, Joe, you're going to be 82 by the next election. Isn't that too old? And I said, hey, let's not think about the future. Let's live in the present when I'm only 81 and a half. And who's laughing now? I'm genuinely asking. I don't remember how it turned out. Trump doesn't seem to understand or care about the Signal scandal, which is why the aides who are involved, like National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, think they can keep their jobs by peddling obvious bull like this.
I'm sure everybody out there has had a contact where it was said one person and then a different phone number.
But you've never talked to him before, so how's the number on your phone? I mean, I'm not an expert in any of this, but it's just curious. How's the number on your phone?
Well, if you have somebody else's contact and then then somehow it gets
someone
sucked
sent
in,
you that
it gets
contact.
sucked in.
It just got sucked in is a terrible answer when your title is National Security Advisor. It's not even a good answer if your title is Dave's weird friend. Hey, you guys think maybe the number just got sucked in? What? Dave, you gotta stop bringing this guy around. You guys talking about me? I came with Dave. I didn't know he was gonna look. I'm really happy with how he turned out. And it's worth noting the president of the United States, with access to the best intelligence in the world, seems to know less about this earth-shattering scandal involving leaks of highly sensitive military plans than regular Americans at town halls who are very angry about it.
Another Republican town hall turned raucous. This one unfolded in Indiana last night. Republican Congresswoman Victoria Spartz facing boos and jeers.
I just wanted to see what your plan is to address the issue with the administration talking about classified military operations on Signal. And will you demand the immediate resignation of Pete Hegseth?
So let me just address, no, I will not demand their resignation.
Republicans are so insane they've turned town halls into wrestling matches. Usually you only see that kind of reaction from a crowd when they reveal the results of a paternity test. They should start giving these town halls Jerry Springer episode titles like My Baby Daddy Cheated on Me, then texted about war plans. Don't let Republicans lull you into thinking this Signal story is nothing that's just going to fizzle away.
There's a lot of interest in this story, all right? Google searches this week versus last week for these topics. For The Atlantic, how many people are searching for The Atlantic? Up 900%. That is the highest on record since Google searches began. They started tracking them back in 2004. How about for Signal, of course, the app on which this all occurred? Up over 1,000%. Again, the highest on record.
That's right. People are very interested in this story. In fact, just the other day, I was on a text chain with some friends, and I said, have you heard about the Signal story? And someone said, I just Googled it. And someone else said, it's so crazy. And then a third person said, you know what's crazy? The Donald Trump portrait in Colorado. He's way hotter than that. And then I said, Donald, is that you? And then they replied, it is, but don't be mad. I just got sucked in. And it's like, I don't think that's a thing. I don't think it's a thing that gets sucked in. So people are riled up. And the scene at that Indiana town hall was not unique. Republicans have been swarmed by angry constituents for weeks now. And if you combine that with the growing Tesla protests and the huge crowds at the Bernie AOC fighting oligarchy rallies, there's clearly a major backlash brewing against the GOP.
Independent Senator Bernie Sanders and Democratic Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez are rallying huge crowds at events across the country.
There were protests at Tesla dealerships around the world Saturday as part of a campaign demonstrators call the Tesla Takedown.
For weeks now, voters have been giving lawmakers an earful at town halls across the country.
I happen to believe very much that President Trump supports our Constitution.
When you talk about tyranny, when you talk about presidential power, I remember having the same discussion with Republicans when Biden was elected.
I support Elon Musk and the Department of Government Efficiency.
If the stock market keeps tanking, I'm going to sell that clip package as a greatest hits DVD called Now That's What I Call Republicans Getting Yelled At. I'm going to make like $1 billion. And all the booing has clearly taken a toll on Elon Musk. After Minnesota Governor Tim Walz made fun of him for tanking Tesla's stock price, Elon went on Fox News on the verge of tears to complain that people were being mean to him.
I mean, you had Tim Walz, who's a huge jerk, running around on stage with a Tesla stock price, where the stock price had gone in half. And he was overjoyed. What an evil thing to do. What a creep. What a jerk. Like, who derives joy from that?
I think I do, maybe. I mean, just like, because seriously, you're slashing nutritional aid, veterans benefits, and Social Security, and you expect us to feel bad about a stock price? I can't believe this is what happened to the your feelings crowd. They went from cry more libs to stop making me cry libs. Also, Tim Walz is a jerk. My man, when you run around with a chainsaw on stage, you're celebrating cutting jobs and benefits. To quote, I believe it was William Shakespeare, the jerk store called and they're running out of you. And now polls are showing that a majority of Americans already disapprove of Trump's performance, and in particular, his handling of the economy is underwater. So naturally, Trump is responding to historic levels of voter anger by claiming he's already mulling the idea of illegally staying in office past the end of his term.
The president now says he's not joking about the possibility of running for a third term, something that is expressly prohibited under the Constitution.
President Trump saying he would not rule out seeking a third term as president, telling NBC News there are several methods to accomplish this.
I have had more people ask me to have a third term, which is in a way a fourth term, because the other election, the 2020 election, was totally rigged. So it's actually sort of a fourth term in a certain way. I just don't want the credit for the second, because Biden was so bad. He did such a bad job.
Sorry, what he's... all right. People want you to run for a third term, which you can't do, but it would actually be a fourth term because Biden's term was your second term, but you don't want to take credit because he did a bad job during his term, which was technically your term, but you had nothing to do with it, so you deserve a third term, which is actually your fourth term. Is it possible that Air Force One is flying so high they're losing oxygen? No, I don't need the mask. I'm good. I've been thinking clearly. To be clear, there's no such thing as a third term. Let's not entertain it like it's a real thing. The Constitution is crystal clear that a president can only have 2 terms. This isn't coming out of nowhere. Republicans have already started laying the groundwork.
Tennessee Republican Congressman Andy Ogles has introduced a House resolution to allow president to be elected to a third term. In a statement, Ogles said the amendment would, quote, allow President Trump to serve 3 terms, ensuring that we can sustain the bold leadership our nation so desperately needs.
I'm a firm believer that President Trump will run and win again in 2028.
You know he's term limited. How do you think he gets another term?
We're working on it. I think we'll have a couple of alternatives. Let's say that.
Ooh, mysterious. Exactly what our founding fathers intended. I remember in the Federalist Papers when Madison said, how many branches of government should there be? And Hamilton responded, I'll never tell. This is Mad King behavior. Trump is governing like the dictator he said he would be. You don't need to look any further than his immigration policy to see that.
Tonight, a Tufts University PhD student remains detained without any charges. Ramesa Ozturk is the latest foreign national arrested by immigration officers. The officers revealed their badges only once she had been restrained. They kept their faces covered for most of what you're watching.
Once you've lost your visa, you're no longer legally in the United States, and we have a right, like every country in the world has a right, to remove you from our country. If you come into the United States as a visitor and create a ruckus for us, we don't want it. We don't want it in our country. Go back and do it in your country.
Wait, I'm sorry, now it's against the law to create a ruckus? Somebody warned the Wu-Tang Clan. Why do these guys always talk like the evil dean from every 80s teen comedy? I demand the gentleman from Alpha Delta be removed at once. I simply will not tolerate these hooligans creating a ruckus on our esteemed campus. Why don't you go to one of your low-rent chain restaurants where you drink beer and ogle women? I believe it's called... Trump and Musk are implementing their vision of an authoritarian government. They're snatching people off the street without due process for opinions they don't like, sending people to foreign jails and dismantling programs that working people depend on. But they are facing major resistance from ordinary Americans across the country who don't want to live under a king. The GOP, on the other hand, is fully on board. Trumpism is a cult, and I guess you could say Republicans got...
sucked in.
This has been a closer look.